Hi, and welcome to Steve's Backyard Bonsai. Today I'm going to be trying an experiment. This is a seed tray with a mesh bottom. On top of that, I've put some window screen because I intend to put some Turfus fines, safety Zorb fines, on top of this in a small layer. And on top of that, I intend to put this screen. This is that plastic screen you get at the craft store, which I use now for all of my drainage holes. But I have enough of it. This fits right inside here. And let me tell you what I plan to do with all of this. I first got the idea from Candace at Bonsai Science, who had indicated that she was going to get a dedicated grinder, dry out some moss, dry out some sphagnum moss as well, and create a sprinkle dust that she would put on her plantings, and that moss would grow. Then I saw Dave from Dave's Bonsai actually putting that into practice and doing it in trays to get the moss to propagate in trays. And I would like to try that experiment today as well, just slightly differently, because harvesting the moss becomes an issue. You pick up the substrate with it, you bring that over to whatever it is you're planting. I just thought if there were a removable tray inside the pot on top of the Turfus and maybe had the sphagnum moss on it, then you put that on top. You put this in a tray that you can fill with water, or just put a little water in it so it would percolate up through the moss and keep it moist, because the Turfus holds water very well, and the sphagnum moss layer would hold water very well. Even if you let it dry out, there would still be some moisture there for the moss spores to latch onto and grow. So that's what I'm going to try today. I don't think I've explained it as well as I could, but hopefully by watching me, you'll see what I have in mind. I'm going to put a mask on, and I'm going to get right to this. Um, it's 77 degrees Fahrenheit in my greenhouse right now, so it's about 29 or 30 degrees Celsius. It's so warm in the greenhouse. It's only 40 outside, but the sun is shining brightly. And this is one of the problems I'm having, is trying to maintain the cool in the greenhouse. I only have a few trees in here. I have cuttings that I'm rooting. I have my Alberta spruce. I have my Mugo pine, which I'll be working on at some point, and a couple of trees I brought in from outside to work on. The Chinese elm park setting that I'm working on has started to leaf out. I wouldn't say leaf out, but the buds are swelling. Um, and I'm not sure I think that's a bad thing. I saw a few videos on Chinese elms recently, and this seems to be an okay time of year uh, for them to leaf out. I do want an early start on those, because in the spring I plan to repot them into a little better pot than the seed tray, not its final pot, of course, but something to really grow out in. Um, so keeping the temperature down at night is no problem at all. Keeping it low in the daytime has been a problem. This is an insulated greenhouse, meaning it's a double wall thickness of polycarbonate. So it does hold the heat in very well. But here, the sun is going behind a cloud. I don't know if you can perceive that right now, but you can feel the temperature radiating in. It does not take long, but when the sun is shining, boy, this place could be a hothouse. And I have the window open behind this curtain. Uh, about halfway, just so that I don't overheat while I'm doing this video. All right, let me get to this. I'll readjust the camera so you can see what I'm doing, and that'll be that. Okay, I have a Ziploc bag filled with turfus fines from sifting out the fine particles in my bonsai soil mix. This is safety Zorb that you can buy at any auto parts store or auto service type place, because it is great for absorbing oil that spills or any kind of liquid that spills. So I think this would be a good layer for trapping moisture. It's also good because I can flatten it out, make it pretty thin, and have no problem keeping it moist by just having it in a tray of water. And I don't want to put too much in. I'm going to flatten that out. All right, I have this spatula that my wife donated to the greenhouse after I threatened to take one. No, I wouldn't do that. And I'm just making a nice flat surface. Okay, now I'm not fully prepared for this. I haven't gathered my sphagnum moss. I haven't plugged in my grinder yet. But I was able to find a Toastmaster coffee grinder on sale at my local job lot for $9, $9.99 rather. So when Candace said she was going to use a dedicated coffee grinder, I said, ooh, let me go look for one on sale. Because I do not grind my own coffee beans at home. Okay, that's a nice flat surface. So let me gather my moss. Let me gather my sphagnum moss. Let me plug my grinder in, and I'll come back on the other side of that. I just thought this was a great idea that Candace had. I don't know if it was her idea originally, but I'm hoping it works. Here I have some sphagnum moss that I've had for quite some time. It's nice and dry. I use it for air layering. I have some stuff that is old sphagnum moss that I've used for air layering that's sitting in my shed. It's kind of moist and kind of stays moist. This stuff is pretty dry to begin with. Let's see how this grinder works. I've never done this before. I just plugged this thing in for the first time. I know it works. I tried it, but oh, that's just too awesome. That is fantastic. All right, I'm going to collect it in here and just grind up the rest of this. I am wearing a mask. This stuff can be, I've heard it can be deadly. I don't know how true that is. That somebody died. Whatever that is, maybe put it in the comments below. Because this is used very prevalently in bonsai, sphagnum moss, by many, many practitioners. And perhaps there is no substitute. It's the greatest stuff on earth. But if it kills, and I've even heard you're supposed to wear gloves when using it. I just remembered that. So I'm not making this a lifetime practice. I am basically playing around with sphagnum moss to see if I can get it to do what I want it to do, and be the medium for growing nice moss that you can then use on your bonsai trees. Okay, here we go again. That's fantastic. Candace, definitely do it. Oh, this one's really dusty. I'm probably going to do more than I need because I don't want to run out. The idea is to cover the top of this tray, cover that layer with this sphagnum moss, and then put even more on top of the mesh or the screening that I put on top of this layer, which should come in contact with the turfus, the damp turfus, and should make for a good growing medium for the rest of the moss. Now, let me get a little more. This is exactly what I hoped it would be. Yeah, this is better than wrecking my fingers on a grater or something like that. I love it. And I'll just do the rest of this, and that'll be that. All right, that ought to be enough. Please take the warning seriously about wearing a mask. All right, let's get this layer on here, first layer. Make sure you can still see this. Here's my Parmesan cheese thing. This might be a ridiculous waste of time, this thing. But I bought it. Might be good. All right, I'm just going to put a fairly thick layer on here. Oh, it works. But it may take a while. It's taking too long. Now I'm going to put this layer on top. And the idea of this layer is so that I can remove the moss as it's growing without picking up substrate or much substrate with it. All right, and I just want this to kind of fill the holes. Keep it moist to keep the dust down. Now, this was a good idea, but in practice, that's the whole idea. I'll try my bright ideas out, and if they work, you can use them. If they don't work, well, at least you didn't waste your time. But that's my thoughts anyway. All right, forget that. This is exactly the right amount that I did. This should stay nice and moist. And become a good base for a real pretty moss that I collect everywhere I go. I bet you guys do that too. I've talked about my mom, right? Um, Putting sticks in the ground and my dad getting mad at her. But she was ruthless with that stuff. I remember one time we were in Manhattan and we were walking out in front of a fancy hotel and there were doormen and we weren't going to that hotel. We were just walking by. And mom just nonchalantly would break a branch, a small cutting off of a potted plant that was, out there. You just wanted to cringe, but in many respects, I picked up that disease, although I don't do it quite so brazenly. Be interested to know if other people have experienced that sort of thing. All right, that's it on the sphagnum. So once again, this is a seed tray. It's got an open mesh bottom, and I've put a window screen there to keep the turfus fines from falling through the mesh. I put ground sphagnum moss, finely ground sphagnum moss on top of that, and a plastic screen on top of all of that. Now I'm going to just move this over to the side and work on grinding up my nice moss. Okay. Here are 2 trays of nice moss. Most of it's nice moss. This you can see the difference here. This stuff I don't like as well, but it was growing in and among this velvety stuff, which is beautiful. And I cleaned off the backs as good as I could. Let me see if I can get a close-up of that. It's basically just the moss without any of the substrate behind it. There was plenty. I collect this moss in all kinds of different places. But it's beautiful stuff. So let's grind it up. I'm going to keep it in a jar with a cap because this stuff, hopefully, I can sprinkle on top of my plantings and hopefully better moss will grow, or real moss will grow and just grow naturally. That is the plan. But let's see how this works. If I can get as fine a powder as I got with the sphagnum moss. That was really great. This thing is fantastic. Thank you again, Candace, for the idea. Here we go. All right, it grinds well. Oh, I hope this works. What a great idea. So this was growing on a sand substrate, uh, most of it. After I had collected it and taken off most of the dirt, I put it in a tray on top of sand, and I didn't like what happens there. It picks up the sand, sand gets on top of it, it's ugly. I'll go on fast mode for this as well. Well, that was a lot dirtier and took longer than I thought it would. I hope I didn't bore you too much with this, but okay, this is what I'm trying to do. I want this to be a place where moss grows all summer long. I'll put it outside. Last year I had cut some 1/4 inch um, wire cloth to put on top of these just to keep the birds off the moss. But now that I have um, that mesh in here, it should be a lot easier for me to lift up or even scrape off the moss that I want to use on my plantings. I will also be sprinkling this on um, on top of existing bonsai trees that I have, and hopefully it'll grow in that situation as well. I'm not sure if I'll use the sphagnum or not, but that really worked out well, I thought. All right, so now I'm going to get going on sprinkling. I still have my mask on sprinkling the fine moss powder on top of the moist sphagnum moss. I'm going to try and do this in a way that you can see it. I haven't gotten the rhythm down yet. Okay, so this is a different color, which makes it easier to discern on top of the sphagnum moss. I didn't grind up all of it. I ground up one tray. I have another tray with about the same amount of moss in it. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Oh well. This may not green up. This may be a bust. I wish Dave and Candace luck with theirs. And I'm just going to see how this grows. I got enough room in here to do this. I got grated cheese dispenser. This might work a little better than it did with the sphagnum. Particles are much finer. Oh yeah. Oh, I like it. And following this experiment is as easy as hitting the subscribe button. I would appreciate it if you would subscribe. And let's see what happens in the spring. Okay, covering this back up. It'll stay nice and dry in here. Put that back there. Put that there. Now, what I wanted to do, if you can see that this is in a plastic, oh, it's like a chafing dish cover, or one of those dishes that you get food from the deli. those aluminum dishes. This is the cover for one of those. So it holds water. So I'm going to put some water in here. This is rainwater that I collected in the greenhouse because of my leaky skylight situation, which I will rectify at some point. That'll be sucked up into the turfus, and that should keep the moss moist. Now, I do sometimes worry about getting mosquitoes breeding in here, so if I see the larva, I drain the water for a few days, and that is how I deal with that. Probably not the smartest idea to have standing water, but I can't think of a better way to do this. Let's see what happens. Give it a spray on top as well. And I'll update you periodically. And certainly be very excited if this works. Now, I will be moving on to more serious bonsai work. Not that this isn't serious. It's just an experiment. My cuttings. The mess. Here are two more hornbeam. Oh, let me show you this. I've seen this experiment done with pine cones very successfully. I thought I would do it with spruce cones, and in here are also, I think, locust tree seeds. So we'll see if anything grows out of this. Another experiment. There are my Chinese elm. Back there's a mugo pine. That other tray of moss. Another thuja, and my Thuja occidentalis primo, which I'll be working on hopefully tomorrow. So thanks again for keeping me company in my backyard. I'm Steve, and I will see you next time.